Is Pet Talk Tuesday, and this is going to be super short, just a couple of announcements. So the first thing I want to share with you guys, which I thought was amazing, right? So I've been working with some supplementation. So one of the challenges with being diabetic, the hair everywhere, right? One of the challenges with being diabetic, and you may or may not know this, is if you're a non-insulin dependent diabetic, meaning that you take metformin, the problem with metformin is that because it affects your GI system, it tends to wash out all of your B vitamins. So there's typically, with diabetics who take metformin, a B complex or B vitamin deficiency. Not enough to be clinically significant, but certainly enough to be felt, right? Depending on how sensitive you are to your B levels. Your B vitamins are very important because they rule your nervous system response and energy levels, right? Hey, and just general brain function and all that sort of stuff. So these things are problematic, okay? Very problematic. And for people who are more nervous types, the mercury rule, you know, you people out there who have a lot of mercury activity in your charts, you will definitely be very, very sensitive. Earthquake! You'll be very sensitive. You're going to be very sensitive to suboptimal B levels. So I started experimenting with some sublingual vitamin B complex supplementation, and also some liquid minerals, which are good. Now, I'm going to get into all this in a second. So the thing with liquid minerals, I just want you guys to know, if you're thinking about taking mineral supplementation, I strongly recommend that you be very slow about doing this and maybe consider not doing it and getting your minerals as part of a multivitamin. Only because it is extremely easy to overdose or become toxic with too much mineral supplementation. People have been known to do this. Literally they are trace elements. You only need micro amounts of it, and it's very hard to kind of balance that out, especially if you're not a nutritionist or a medical professional. So I'm taking mineral supplements. I don't recommend other people do it unless you really know what you're doing. As a standalone supplementation, you can get them with a good multi. The other thing that I'm absolutely jazzed about is I've started taking tyrosine, l-tyrosine, which is an amino acid. So the l-tyrosine has a number of functions, which are all really impressive. Yeah, well, I'm working on it. But one of the things that I'm really impressed by with the l-tyrosine as an amino acid supplementation is that it's supposed to help with mood swings. Now, the thing to understand also, and again, these things all come with caveats and considerations, l-tyrosine will affect dopamine levels in your brain. If you are currently taking any type by a medical professional specifically for regulating, you know, your mental or emotional states, especially things that I believe are MAOI inhibitors, do not, I repeat, do not take l-tyrosine. You do not want to mess around with your dopamine levels. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter. I believe I have to double check on this. I didn't spend 20 years in medical school, so this is not automatic for me. But l-tyrosine affects your dopamine levels. And the thing that I do know about dopamine in the brain is that dopamine levels, when they're too low or when they're lower, will affect mood and mental function. So you're going to be depressed, you're not going to feel so good, And by the way, these are all things that you're going to experience with 100 other ailments. So you can't always assume that it's dopamine levels. Too much dopamine and you'll be experiencing euphoria of the manic, depressive, not enjoyable kind. As well as all sorts of other problems come with the dopamine levels that are way too high. So don't mess around with your brain chemicals. If you're currently taking psychotropic drugs or any type of mood stabilizers, do not take tyrosine. It will mess around with your dopamine levels. And the range is like this big when you're talking about brain chemicals. Those neurotransmitters are very sensitive to stuff. So, but I've been going through some stuff and dealing with some things. And, you know, middle age is not kind to us, especially as women, because we have, you know, so much more going on in the basket of hormones that we're dealing with, and the cascade of hormone interactions. But what I found was that the combination of the B supplements and the tyrosine, which is apparently affecting my dopamine levels, is helping significantly. So I'm feeling a lot more clear. I'm a lot more mental clarity these days, and I think a lot of it's the B vitamin. I think the dopamine, the tyrosine and B complex together is really what's doing it. And I want to let you guys know that I am getting ready to start a podcast and blog separate from YouTube. So for those of you who like to read or like to listen while you're on the go, and you're actually very interested in grown woman topics, you know, all the things that come with being women and midlife and mid-age and all this sort of stuff, we'll be having our womanly chat at the table, you know, at the kitchen table on another location, which I'll advertise. At the end of this in the comments section. Supplementing with hormones. So, and again, hormones, just like neurotransmitters, are very, very sensitive to levels. So you got to be really careful with that. And also, too, so if you're going to supplement with hormones, I really recommend that you see your gyno, you see your girl doctor, right? Or the doctor for your girly parts. The other is that I really want you to see either a female gyno or a younger gyno. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Women are much more sensitive and understanding about what's going on. Like, they get it, especially, well, no, let me rephrase that. Not all women. I've met some older female doctors who are gynecological, like, vag specialists who are just mean and dried up and nasty. But as a rule, if I had to choose between male and female, I typically go with women because it's just, there's a lot less I have to explain. And younger doctors tend to be more up on recent changes and developments in medicine. I've got bags under my eyes. So younger doctors tend to be more on top of new changes and things that are fresh and new in the industry. And there may have been the problem with the female doctor I had. She was just old, like, and crotchety and mean. Old buzzard. Ugh. So if you're going to start messing around with your hormones, that's definitely the place to start, because too much causes one set of problems, too little causes another. And the other is, sometimes we may be thinking that the problem is the hormones, when really the problem may be other things. You know, there's a lot of, our body's going through a lot of changes, you know, after 40. And we are going through a lot of changes because we are like wine and we are becoming amazing. So part of the maturing process and the ripening process and the blooming process of being a phenomenal wine that looks and tastes and smells amazing because it's had time to really mature. It's kind of the same thing with being a person, right? But it's a complicated process, and there are definitely some changes that are going on, and our bodies are not simple machines. So we want to be really careful when we're messing around with stuff like that. But we're going to talk about all this sort of stuff too. And I found out about this procedure called cool sculpting, which is a non-surgical, non-invasive form of liposuction, which basically uses cryogenics to kill fat cells, which is pretty impressive. So I want to talk about that more in a separate podcast, which will be listed later in the comments. So come back and look for the comments to find the link to that if you're interested in that. And all the podcasting is going to be about being a woman in midlife. As far as horoscopes this week, I honestly have been afraid to look. Because we are heading from all of these planets in Pisces being squared by Mars and Sagittarius into the Aries slide, which means that we're going to go from people fantasizing about being lunatics to actually doing it. And we've got all the retrogrades going on, which should be good because that should put the brakes on some of this impulsive behavior, which is going to be way too much of it once everything goes into Aries. I know, right? People have been saying the lunatics are out in force. So I'm actually going to take the time at some point and write an actual horoscope. So I just wanted to touch base with you guys. I'm really back. And look for, if you're a woman over 40 and you want to have that kitchen table chat about how our body changes and stuff that's going on, I kind of share, like, definitely look in the links and all that stuff. All right, I gotta go. Talk to you later.